Hey, hi everyone. As I'm kind of new to posting videos on YouTube, I was wondering yesterday, um, should I post these videos where I'm still like learning in the learning process, or should I start over, scrap everything, and then start with a bit more like final products? For now, they're just gonna stay as is, and I think you'll notice that I'm into um, ESL education and Arabic for second language. And naturally, I'm interested in how adults learn. I like to teach language based on work purposes, like something that you need for your job. And so, naturally, today I want to talk about how to structure like workplace training. So, kind of combines all my interests in one. Um, I'm interested in like how workplaces run. I don't know why. Um, I like the routine, but I also like that a lot of places have learning opportunities. So, how can you structure it in a way that's very specific to the job, but at the same time still cater to adult learning theories? So, I want to talk about um, adult learning theories in the beginning. I want to talk about the process of needs assessment and then the process of designing your training, and then how to present and how to facilitate a workshop and what's the difference between the two last things. So let's talk about theories. So there was this guy here who came up with some theories that he noticed were very, very important when you're trying to do or to work with adult training. um, I've kind of looked into it in a bit more detail, and I think that before I present all of his theories, just the fact that we should know that there are adult education theories. What they are exactly and how you can like use them and the diversity within it is, I think that's endless. But these principles are nice to keep in mind if you want to respect uh, your you know fellow adult, and also reach specific results with them. So no, he wants us to know that adults are more self-directed than younger people, um, and that their learning goals are specific now. Like it's not just a range of general subjects anymore. It's like learning for something specific that you want to do in your life. Um, Also, it's people usually look for immediate results behind their education quest when they're older. And it's also like if they notice, there's a problem in my life and it needs me to learn such and such thing. And so that's kind of how people base what to join and what not to join as adults. Um, and he also talks about motivation and how it kind of shifts inward. So, yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Also, as a facilitator, you want to keep them involved before you start your training and after, like when you're, doing the assessments. Um, Before workshops and trainings, you want to know people's interests and goals and how they like to learn and things like that as much as you can. Um, it goes without saying in the previous point that you'll keep people involved as you're learning too, or during the workshops. Um, Also, Knowles talks about how uh, as adults, we learn from experience and mistakes. I think that's something we share with kids, but we'll look at mistakes a bit different now that we're older. Um, okay, so yeah, again, he says that they, adults learn something to solve a problem. And not necessarily like follow a general um, curriculum that's just been kind of set up for them. Um, so just to kind of get some involvement as well with this presentation, think about some of the skills that you need if you if this is something you really do need, then you could grab a pen and try this out. What is it that you need to learn in the immediate future with regards to your work or social life or personal development, or family, whatever? Something that keeps nagging in the back of your head every day. You could kind of make a list now so that you have the chance to do so. And what are the barriers? Like, what's stopping us from learning these things? And if we do decide to go ahead and learn something, where can you get it, and when can you do this? So, just some things to think about. It's nice to know where we are in life now that we are self-directed. It's nice to know what's kind of missing. If there's a problem that keeps recurring, maybe there's something we can do to like fix it. The second thing that talk about when it comes to adult training is making a needs assessment. I took a course in this and it was much more intense than what I thought. So yeah, it's pretty, people really try to get to the bottom of what's missing in a workplace or in a place of learning, and then take it from there. So you look for the gap, especially if things have changed around. Where are we and where do we want to be? Also, I'm thinking about language training. That's why I pause sometimes, and I'm thinking like gaps can be in the workplace, or they can be in something specific that you're trying to learn or acquire, or to be honest, sometimes it's in our personal lives too. So um, these models can be used in very different, diverse ways. Um, After you kind of analyze the gaps, you're going to have to be realistic on what we can work on at the moment, given the resources. To go from the most important thing that will make a big difference, and then leave the rest for another time, maybe. So sometimes if you're working with a big group, you want to collect data. And if you're working with a company, then you want to know from the managers and from the employees what they want to learn or what they want to add. After that, you take the information and you analyze it. Don't leave just because you've been in a training setting before. Don't leave with a preset idea on what you want to do, because everyone's data is different. So if you have a preset idea, the analysis is not going to work. So be open-minded. And then you take the feedback to the to the person that you need to give the feedback to. In fact, you can be really ethical and honest in this phase, and kind of say that maybe the training is not even required. You might just need something else. However, if you do, then you start planning out your training. If you are presenting the training, then you are the subject matter expert, but if you're not, then you just need to get as much information from that person as possible. So here's something we can try as well. So if you did think about some things that you want to learn, this is another graph that you can use or print and then kind of tick off if you've done something about it on the day. So again, we're self-directed. We can kind of learn things on our own sometimes. So to create a, to create a way to see your progress, you can just kind of put things like this, and this can get more and more specific. Like if you are some sort of instructor, you can kind of break down the things you've learned. But if you've just done something about it in general, you can just put a tick there. Now I want to talk about the design. So I put everything here already for you to see, just so you can kind of get the full picture all at once. So you need to kind of look into who you are working with, okay? And then prioritize the objectives. Before we prioritize the things we want to learn, and now we actually want to, you see the process of just breaking things down more and more and more because we want to be as specific as possible. And then you break the content into smaller chunks. And then you assign the chunks to different, or not assign, but you kind of create activities based on the chunks. When I was looking into this, some people kind of pick the same activity and do it over and over and over. So if you pick a video, for example, you just kind of go through the material and keep changing the videos as you go along, or you can mix and match. So again, it goes back to the audience and the objectives. If you are doing a formal training, you want to have a storyboard that you can share. First, you want to like have a prototype of the storyboard and of the design, show it to management, and if they're okay with it, then now you have a storyboard for your people. It doesn't, I don't know, I don't think it has to be a storyboard. It just has to be kind of like a template or a summary that they can look at and know, where you're at. It can be like worksheets, anything really. Finally, you're going to deliver your presentation. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. But as you could see, we don't just jump into things when we're working with adults. We don't even jump into things with children either. But it's just a different setting, okay, different goals. But there's a lot of prep work before you deliver. And something I didn't write, but is very crucial, is to set up your place, to set it up really, really well before anybody comes. Okay, and finally, you're going to evaluate your design and make sure that it's flowing and everything before you present. So quick reflection question. Can you think of any like skills that I did ask like what skills do you want to add, but is there something that's really like hindering your current role? Sounds similar to my previous questions, but I think that you can kind of like narrow down what you need sometimes. And then the more clear it becomes to you in terms of what you need, probably you will make time for it. It's very hard for adults to like change sometimes like it's very hard to change routines and stick to new things easily. And um, yeah, but if there is something that we're doing like every day that's hindering your life, then that's something that might require changing or learning and stuff. Um, so let's talk about presentation quickly. Presenting something, um, yeah, this is interesting for me. We our whole life we're exposed to presentations, like teachers and then the lecturers and then training and our bosses, our parents. There's always some sort of thing that's being presented to us. Um, and like paying attention is not something that sometimes you just do naturally. It's like the other person's work, the presenter's way of engaging. So this is what we're talking about here. So um, the more specific they are with what they want at the end of the presentation, the better. Okay. Um, this is what's kind of taught when people are talking presentations. I don't know if personal stories are always that important, but some kind of effective story, basically. Um, so arguments need to be like similar, like to each other. You can't talk about 300 different things at one presentation unless you are president of the world and you do need to talk about different topics. But they, regardless of what they are, they have to be cohesive. They have to like flow. And repetition is good. Uh, what is it? Paraphrasing is very good, and it's something that we teach in language a lot, because the ideas will stick better. So it says arguments here, and I was talking about like presenting also like in workplaces and stuff. But basically, a lot of times we work in very specific ways and with routines. So when someone's coming up with something new, it is kind of like making arguments, isn't it? Like they're trying to change something about the way you work, so they have to convince you. Um, with every argument or topic, you have to include some examples and encourage participation. Um, it's very nice when you have props or something that people can take home as well as a reminder, because training, when we're older, like learning, um, like needs reinforcement as well in different ways. Um, well, this is a nice skill actually, to time arguments to see how long like you'll talk. Like I could have done it for this um, presentation. I was thinking, do I want to present it all um, in one video, or do I want to break it down? So maybe someday I'll break it down because there is a lot of detail in each section. So yeah, timing is great. Okay, another activity. Looks more serious than the previous ones, but it's not. So an example of something that you can present is a new product, okay? And this is kind of a general process of how new products are designed. So let's say for example, let's say you're talking about this. Can you pick two parts of the process that are consecutive and just write it here vertically? Just write two of them here. And then if you can list some examples and activities or participation methods for these two things. If my my explanation was not very clear, I was thinking about products when I was writing about the presentation section. So I thought, it would be nice to. A lot of times, like training gets dry, and there's it doesn't really focus on innovation and producing new things. So um, there's always new ways to like run like trainings and stuff. So for example, you could put design here and then prototype here, and then you can give examples about these two things. And remember, if you are presenting to a group, there is a point to your presentation. There is a take-home message. There's something that you usually want them to do. So if they are trying to design something, I'm going to kind of remind them that they need to design something in the beginning, give them examples or practice here, and then the prototype is a very important part of like the design, because a lot of people jump into release. So this would be interesting to talk about. Okay, finally, I'm going to talk about facilitation. Sometimes we don't need to present anything. You just need to make sure that people are participating in some sort of facilitated setting. But still, we need to have objectives. Okay, so even if you're not doing all the talking and blah blah blah, like what I'm doing right now, you still kind of have to have objectives clearly stated somewhere, so that when people come into the training, they know what is required before they leave. People term this nicely. It's basically what we used to call class rules or classroom rules. Here, we want to call them mutual agreements. So everything goes here when it comes to like respect and listening and all of these things. You might not think it's important, but they are important. Also something that goes into mutual agreements is like being present and not being distracted and things like that. So what we do in a facilitation is different types of activities of getting people to participate that I'll break down now. I'll break some of them down. But there's really no like one person talking. And if there is, and they say it's a facilitation, then it's not a facilitation. Also, because sometimes I teach language one-on-one, again, I should not be lecturing. It should just be like a joint conversation. And sometimes when you're training or you're like working with development in a workplace, you could be just sitting with one person. So it's important to know how to facilitate. So we have pair work, we have open-ended questions or open questions to the place you're in. But if it's a facilitation and you keep asking open questions to everyone, then it kind of starts looking more like a classroom. You can ask people to reflect personally and keep their reflections to themselves. You just open the door for the reflection, and they can just do this by themselves. I forgot there's also, oh no, that's not for facilitation. I was going to say those, what do you call them? Like technological, like question things. I don't, never mind. So yeah, breaking people into groups. This, a lot of the stuff sounds simple and easy, because it's like, yeah, this is how we've always been presenting, throughout our lives and post-secondary education, if we've been there. But breaking people into groups is not as simple as we think, and this is why when you do group people, you still want to keep monitoring, not say, yay, I broke them and they're talking and I'm just gonna, chill and relax. Still, you gotta look around for like energy levels and participation and, people dominating and all of this stuff. And we don't classify anything as good or bad in facilitation participation. It's just personality and like how someone's day is going and stuff. But you could ask people to present. So that's something that's nice. And my experience with that is that I need clear I need clear instructions. Like when people break people into groups, or like facilitators, they break us into groups and then we don't know exactly what we need to do. So depending on the setting and depending on, the creativity level that's expected from us, I'd rather be told exactly what I need to do with this group and what we need to present. Because sometimes they're like, yeah, just break into your groups and then blah blah blah, and this turns into chaos, and they think they did a great job by, you know, choosing the topics or breaking the groups, but we still don't know what we're doing. And some facilitators are good at this. What they do is just provide a feedback sheet, um, or they create a feedback where you can say what you liked and what you didn't like about the group um, work. And that's a learning curve both for you and for, the facilitators. Pass the mic is nice, so that even when you're asking questions, keeps the people alert before their turn comes. And case studies are nice. Very long ones, I get tired from them. I don't know, but definitely because it's a training setting, there's definitely cases and examples and, past experiences with what they're trying to learn. Yeah, this one I don't know. Depends on your group. It's usually worked well um, in settings I've been in, like both as a learner and as a facilitator. But yeah, sometimes it just goes kind of funny or crazy, and people say really weird things. Yeah, I want to. Should I share the story that I had with at an ESL class I was covering for, and um, my debate question was something legal. It was something about I don't know. It was a male stealing from a female or a female stealing from a male, and yeah, the conversation just got very strange. So um, want to maybe find prototypes or find things that have worked before. Um, uh, Asking people to move around is great. Again, depending on energy levels, you can calibrate like accordingly. Um, I think you should try to get everybody to move, um, regardless of what type of group you have. But the movement level can be different for each level. So I've seen corners where you can kind of go to a corner where you have the same opinion with someone or have a different opinion with someone. I've also seen like just blocks placed near each other. Let me try to demonstrate this one. So it's either you put corners in a room so people can go to whichever thing they agree with. And this could be repeated. So you could ask the first question and then people can go to places where they completely agree, somewhat agree, things like that. Or I've seen people just kind of do it like this. So 1, 2, sorry, these are not very beautiful drawings, but basically they could go here if they agree with blah blah statement, and here if they somewhat agree, here, things like that. So yeah, I wonder if I have anything else here. Yeah, I think that a lot of like material that talk about workshops kind of just stick to these things. But I think this is where creativity can be harnessed. I think that there are endless ways to like learn something as an adult. So I think I'll just end here and leave it at that. And maybe just end with this activity here. So imagine you were given this space, okay, a beautiful big um, warehouse space or I don't know, factory space, whatever. And you wanted to kind of bring the neighborhood together, but you want a learning experience. How would you set this place up? So I'll leave it here. I'll leave you here with your imagination, and I'm gonna come out of the picture and this presentation. And sorry if I've bored you, caused any boredom, um, but I hope this was kind of informative. Okay, bye.